Welcome to NFL Daily, where we like a good blowout every now and then. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friends Patrick Claybon and Jourdan Rodrigue. We've got Nick Shook coming up a little later. Patrick, your take on the blowout as an experience?
I think the blowout, if everybody's healthy, it's a great opportunity, especially if you've lost a lot of close games, where it's like, hey, you know what? They got us. You know, you get beat. When somebody like makes a one-hander and mosses you, that's tough. But, you know, you like bite on a double move and you can just wave to them as they celebrate. You know, it's fun every once in a while.
As a fan, it's almost easier to take. You don't have to like think about the different bad. Obviously, as a fan of the team that wins, I always defend like the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl as one of the most entertaining like two quarters of, you know, it gives you something. This was a day of blowouts, Jourdan. We have some stats for you.
Ooh. I love stats.
Going into Sunday Night Football, and yes, we'll wrap with the biggest game of the day, Rodgers versus the Packers. The games were decided by 19 points per game. That's the most since 2009, if that keeps up. There were 8 games of 18 points or more.
Wow.
And yet our show is going to be just as good as ever.
Every single one of these games is a beautiful creature in my mind.
Thank you. So we've got a theme. This was a strange day with 6 teams on a bye and like I said, a lot of blowouts. So we're actually going to lead the show thematically. And these are teams that I believe the most jeopardy in week 8 is about teams that are just trying to keep their seasons alive, trying to turn them around. So it's not really the teams at the top. It's kind of at the teams in the lower middle. And that includes your Baltimore Ravens, who I believe had a monster game. Let's go to Baltimore.
Ravens have it first and goal. 2:19 left to play. Offset eye. Give it to Henry. Right side, hit at the line. Bounces to the outside. Derrick Henry to the 1. Touchdown, Ravens! And with 2:09 left to play, we've waited a month, but the hay's in the barn.
Awesome call there by Jerry Sandusky. Good to have him back on the show. WBAL. Yes. A game-sealing touchdown, 30-16. The Baltimore Ravens beat the Chicago Bears without Lamar Jackson, who was downgraded to out on the injury report after we last talked, and it didn't matter. Snoop Huntley saved the season. I don't want to overstate things, Patrick, but when they make the America's game of the 2025 Baltimore Ravens after they win the Super Bowl this year, this is the pivot point when Snoop Huntley comes in there, only 5 incompletions. The defense steps up. They're able to run the ball, and they avoid a disastrous 1-6 start.
Yeah, people are going to see 2 rushing touchdowns by Derrick Henry and negate things like that 3rd and 7 from Tyler Huntley to DeAndre Hopkins that extended that drive to burn more time off the clock because, you know, the hay was in the barn, but the Bears would teleport directly down the field and have a goal-to-go opportunity like seconds after the hay was in the barn. So you got those little snippets of, the Ravens are going to do this particular very common thing that they do again, but it's the timely completions, the timely runs from Tyler Huntley as well, where you start to believe just a little bit.
It's what you want out of a Ravens win because it was a total team effort. I mean, Snoop, I thought, legitimately played really well, was calm, was protected well, which helped. But you mentioned the running. He had 53 yards on the ground. Keaton Mitchell had some big time runs, 43 yards on only 4 carries. And then Zay Flowers dominates in the first half. You mentioned the big nuke catch. Rashad Bateman had a couple big ones. And I thought it was an awesome game by Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. They didn't have the ball at all in the first quarter. It looked like the Bears might dominate them. They were up 100 yards in terms of the yards from scrimmage, but the defense kept them in the game by forcing field goals. And then the last 3 quarters, it kind of looked like the Ravens team we've been expecting all season, even without Lamar Jackson.
Snoop Huntley, he started the game 11 of 12 passing. He missed one throw in the first half. Ended up completing 77% of his passes overall. And you mentioned it, Todd Monken. There were multiple reports out of Baltimore local media this week of dissent in the ranks and displeasure with his play calling and disgruntled people in that building about some of the predictability of the play calling and just some of the stagnation of the offense overall. He had to have a big game today too, and to do it with a backup quarterback and utilizing every single one of those skill guys and running effectively, I think was important for him.
Yeah, and a lot of chatter, Patrick. I'm not sure what you think about it, about the way the Ravens handled the injury report throughout the week, the expectations from the national insiders were that Lamar Jackson were going to start. They were wrong. He's listed as full on the injury report on Friday. On Saturday, then they have to downgrade him because they said they weren't aware of the rule that if you're on the scout team, you can't be listed as full. I don't know if it was chicanery. Some people think it's almost like they were trying to push Lamar Jackson into the starting lineup. Either way, there was a lot of confidence from people covering this game that Lamar would start on Thursday night, which they have a game in 4 days, and I have a feeling that ended up being a big factor. Let's wait a few more days. How do you feel just in terms of them kind of like stabilizing this season and what everything that happened during this week?
Yeah, the best case scenario is because if, regardless of he's being pushed to play, obviously people would prefer Lamar Jackson be playing for them.
Right.
They would prefer he's healthy. And if the game coming back in 4 days, the best case scenario is the Ravens get a win while Lamar can be on the sideline and cheer up Snoop Huntley, and they have all this positive activity happen, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have to worry about it. I think like the Bears having to think that they're preparing for Lamar Jackson, it's.
The Bears sounded annoyed. They talked to the Fox broadcasters, and they said they prepared specifically for Lamar Jackson all week. And
to so be fair, Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen seem generally annoyed by many.
Yeah, so you prepare for the quarterback that has played the past couple seasons at a level that has honestly never been seen before.
Yeah.
And preparing for him didn't have you prepared for Snoop Huntley. In this game.
Was the offense really that different anyways? Like Huntley was on the move a few times, not as fast as he once was, although he's still pretty young. I always think Snoop Huntley's like an aged quarterback. And then he said after the game, like, well, Lamar Jackson, he's a great mentor to me. I'm like, isn't he younger? They're about the same age, but they've been together. And this is another kind of like the Jackson Dart move that I think points out actually a flaw in the Ravens offseason. Like you paid Cooper Rush all that money, and they might be in a better spot if they had just re-signed Snoop Huntley all along and he'd been their backup. But I don't want to kill him for that. You mentioned the defensive improvement. Roquan Smith returns for this game, has a terrific overall game. Overall, they're healthier. Chidobe Awuzie was back in the mix. You got Marlon Humphrey. Everyone's healthy again, and they did a good job kind of helping play complementary football. Let's switch to a situation late in the game. Bears get the ball. They were down 2 scores. They get the field goal, and then they have a long field to go while down a touchdown. I texted Jourdan at the time, and I'm saying, like, oh, this is a really interesting spot for Caleb Williams. He hasn't been in this sort of spot. I'm curious what's going to happen. This is what happened.
9:15 left to play. The Ravens lead by 3. Williams under center. Drops the throw from the end zone. Fires over the middle. Intercepted. Nate Wiggins with a pick. Brings it along the sideline inside the 10. And the Ravens with the first turnover of the day. And finally, this house is on fire.
Amazing call.
We waited a month.
And yeah, I just thought, first of all, Nate Wiggins had a really nice season, and it was a really good overall Ravens defensive performance. They just looked like a normal defense again. Not like the best defense in the league, but just be a normal defense. It was another bad Caleb Williams performance, and it was another game where the operation wasn't good. Ben Johnson said after the game the penalties stuck out to him.
11 penalties throughout, including multiple false starts and intentional grounding penalties. Just sloppy.
And that happens every single week. At the end of the first half, Caleb Williams had an intentional grounding and then kept the ball in bounds on a couple throws, and they kind of ran out of time. They had to rush and have Cairo Santos kick one at the end. He comes up short, and then at the end of the game, I know the game was probably over, but they have like 4 plays from the 3-yard line. Caleb took a sack at another point where they had a chance to score, and it's just their passing game is uneven. It's not pleasant to watch.
And we saw kind of the way things can roller coaster when you get the turnovers and you go on this 4-game win streak, and then versus where Baltimore's taking care of the ball, they're getting timely first downs and the explosives, especially because the Bears have more explosive runs than anybody in the NFL. It's not even close. And you know, while it wasn't like a lockdown performance, they were able to keep DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai from having those explosives that they've enjoyed the past few weeks. And it's just that combination leads to a frustrating game for the Bears.
It's the same thing over and over and over again, where you're seeing guys schemed open, you're seeing the quarterback make great decisions, and you're seeing just like the synchronicity happening on their scripted drives. And it's leading me to be suspicious that they're even extending the amount of scripted plays that they have installed into their playbook. And then after they go outside of the script and they start having to react and do the different things and adjust, I believe that what we're seeing structurally, they are making adjustments. However, they're not on the same page as a complete unit over and over again. You see it from the offensive line and all the penalties, and you see it with the quarterback, you see it with the run game, you see it with the receivers, and everybody's not just on the same page, and that's just a problem. It showed up in most of their games this season.
Yeah, to your point, their first 2 drives both go over 10 plays, but they settle for field goals on both of them. And it wasn't like there wasn't one thing that went wrong. It really hasn't been. There was a penalty in the mix in one of them. Caleb took a sack on the 3rd down in the other, but they tried to run the ball inside the 5. And that first drive, I don't blame them for doing that. They look great, but they've been a really poor red zone team. They've been a sloppy team. Ben Johnson, he was frustrated after. I know the Bears were 4-2 last year, and then it all fell apart. I don't think that's going to happen this time, but I also don't think they were playing like a 4-2 team. They have an interesting game next week against a team that is also in our A block that's trying to save their season, but not in this next game. We came into this season believing Ravens, they're going to be contenders, right? Okay, maybe they will be in the end. We also thought the Texans were heavy favorites to win their division. Big game for them today against the 49ers.
A good Moali in the backfield, CJ in the gun. Bunch formation left on 3rd and 7 at the San Francisco 30. Here's pressure, CJ over the middle. Caught, 15, 10, 5, into the end zone. Rock and roll, touchdown, Houston.
Who is it?
What a play to Xavier Hutchinson.
Who? Mike Jones.
Marks the spot.
Awesome call there by Mark Vandermeer and Andre Ware on KILT. Good to hear the folks in Houston happy again. Texans win 26-15, Jourdan. CJ Stroud goes over 300 yards on a day where they dominated, and you can pick offense, defense, any way you want to go, because there was a lot of good from these Texans today to get to 3-4.
It was the Iowa State Cyclones offense for CJ Stroud in a big spot with big plays from his receivers who are all alumni of Iowa State. Jalen Knoll, Jaden Higgins, and Xavier Hutchinson all showed up, had really big games. 2 of the 3 are rookies. Jaden and Jalen are both rookies. They drafted them together in hopes that they could start developing this chemistry with CJ Stroud. This offense looked night and day different. When they wanted to play in rhythm and on time, they could. When CJ Stroud wanted to get explosive pass plays, one on a catch and run, Woody Marks, another young player who contributed really, really well today, or he wanted to sling it through the air and get the explosive plays, they were there as well. And because there was no pressure on CJ Stroud, in part, was what helped this offense look like a attacking, functional, multiple, cohesive group. The 49ers only pressured CJ Stroud on 4 of his 26 dropbacks in the first half, and they ended with 7 pressures, and it was not good pressure. They only hit him 2 times. And even against pressure, this is how well things were clicking and how everyone was on the same page. And like I said, the timing plays and the explosives were there. 6 of 6. He was 6 for 7 on the dropbacks where he was pressured per next gen, 103 yards and a touchdown, and 14.7 yards per attempt. This was a Texans offense that was averaging 5 yards per attempt for passing attempt with or without pressure last week. It was a total turnaround for this group.
Someone's got to buy me one of those black Rob Lowe NFL hats because I want to put it on as part of a segment every time I just say, okay, here's another team that we're just going to keep in the mix at 3-4. I didn't want to bury this team as a team that's just tough to watch. And I'm not saying one game solves it all, but it gives them a chance at 3-4.
Yeah, well, the game against the Seahawks, I was ready to do it, Greg.
I know.
They looked nasty against the Seahawks, and their pass blocking stats were actually better today than they were against the absolute dreadful Ravens defensive game where CJ Stroud looked like he was going to win like an NFL Heisman Trophy against that Ravens defense. There was a play in that game where like he was running to the sideline, he stepped out of bounds, so they got a sack. There were no sacks by the 49ers today, and he's like staring down the barrel on that touchdown to Xavier Hutchinson, where it's just you wonder, the Jekyll and Hyde, was this like D'Amico's prior knowledge of the Bob Saleh and Shanahan situation.
Oh, spicy.
Does that play in? Because I'm at a loss here. I will yield to two great football minds to explain to me how the team that looked that bad in Seattle looked this good at home today.
Well, the 49ers are really hurt, first of all. And on defense, compounding injuries. They were rotating players a lot. They rotated Upton Stout in and out of the game because he was banged up. D. Winters, their linebacker, who's been playing well, he was banged up, came into the game, left the game. They're obviously missing a bunch of pass rushers. A couple of their guys are playing with clubs along the defensive line, so that's not really easy to like rip and shed blocking at that point. So this game was really when you face a team like this that is as depleted, they're very well coached, and Robert Saleh's group is, and everybody knows that. D'Amico knows these rules of this defense intrinsically, right? You get an opportunity to actually play complementary football, and not in a way where each side was producing, but in a way where the offense actually set up the strength of this team, which is the defense. The offense the Texans offense went on these long possession drives. The 49ers only had 3 possessions in the first half. Their first 2 possessions were 3 and outs. They ran 14 plays total in the first half. And the Texans were able to play keep away and really set up kind of the way we used to see Kyle Shanahan run his suffocation ball offenses, setting up this top tier defense to absolutely smother Mac Jones and another depleted side of the ball in the 49ers offense.
I'm not saying that Bryce Huff was the Jenga piece for the 49ers.
Shout out Dave Damashek.
I'm not saying that at all. But I do think there's a point where injuries especially at a certain position, like it's just one too many. And you actually think about that game last week with Bryce Huff, like what would they have done without him in that game? They go from like a bad pass rush with him maybe to just nothing. And he should be back in a few weeks, but I do think you're seeing the effect of the injuries. It's just 1 week. They're 5-3 and they've been so resourceful that Mac Jones is not going to be the starter all season. CMC is not going to be held to 25 yards on the ground very often. Like they are due to have some stink bombs, and the way that they've won games that they shouldn't lets them have some stink bombs along the way as they get healthier, if they get healthier at all. But they're always going to be the third most likely team in this division to win it long term because of all those injuries. Part
of the issue is they have very little receiving help. Even the guys they do have on the field, Jauan Jennings has been playing through multiple injuries, and he almost helped lead a comeback with a massive explosive catch he made down the field, especially right after a tough drop. The 49ers started putting things a little bit together, looking like maybe they were going to try for a comeback in the second half, but the Texans stalled it out. Kamari Lassiter had a great interception to sort of ice the game out as well on the Texans side. But the 49ers are sneaky hurt in players that are also still playing. And part of that's along the offensive line. Matt Hennessy, another center, is starting now for this team. Trent Williams came on and off the field looking like he was not feeling great, just looked banged up. The broadcast pointed it out multiple times. And so as a result of that, you have to bring George Kittle, their superstar tight end, into the line a little bit more to help with some of the blocking, especially against this Texans front that is so dynamic and ferocious. And you lose him as a receiver. So now you're trying to funnel everything through Christian McCaffrey and Jauan Jennings, a little Demarcus Robinson sprinkled in there. And that's just not enough. Christian McCaffrey is having such a high production year, high volume year. Part of it's out of necessity. And you have to get Ricky Pearsall back. You have to get some of these guys back, but they're also playing through these like really quiet, I think, simmering under the surface injuries that could hurt them down the line too.
It's brutal. And you hope for the Texans' sake, on the other side that like maybe they feel like they figured out some things on the offensive line that will help out. The running game wasn't consistent, still gave up like a lot of negative runs, and yet they at least hit some explosives, and they're just in the mix. We want the teams in the mix. And after last Thursday night, we thought, okay, there's a path here for this Cincinnati Bengals team to stay in the mix. The Hollywood fairy tale story of Joe Flacco. But we forgot about the Bengals defense.
Jets hoping for their first win of the season. They could get it with a stop on this play. Flacco, shotgun, 5-man rush, looks over the middle, throws low, and it's incomplete! In and out of the hands of Yosivas! The Jets are going to win it! Jarvis Brownlee there in coverage. 27 seconds to go. And for the Jets, it'll be victory formation. They'll finally get their first of the season, and it couldn't have been more dramatic in come-from-behind fashion.
Oh, dramatic on what has been a difficult season for the New York Jets and their fans, to say the least. And yes, a very difficult day that they got to end on the field on a happy note. Great to see Aaron Glenn there hugging it out. Great to see Justin Fields. We'll hear from him later. Get a victory led by the offense, 39-38 in Cincinnati, breaking the hearts of a lot of Bengals fans and their long-term hopes. Tell us, Jourdan, about the chaos that was the end of this Jets-Bengals game.
Yeah, let me set the scene here, because the Jets were down 31-16 at the end of the third quarter, and then they make, I think, what can only be described as an admirable effort. They're running the ball well. Justin Fields was throwing the ball really well, making some great decisions, and the Bengals defense started caving in, right? And so then you started to see, oh, is this possible? Could this actually happen? Joe Flacco, he takes the first sack of the game. The Jets' first sack of the game came halfway through the fourth quarter, right on time if you're the Jets, because they were right in the middle of attempting to mount this comeback. And after that sack by Will McDonald and a Bengals punt, Justin Fields had a couple of truly excellent throws to get the Jets into scoring position, with the Bengals having a 6-point lead, And one of those was a 3rd and 2 absolute laser to Mason Taylor for a first down, which also was a really situationally smart play by Justin Fields, because it happened right outside the 2-minute warning, and it gave them a fresh set of downs on the other side of the 2-minute warning. And then it's Breece Hall's turn.
Ruckert motions right. The lone setback, Breece Hall. Toss sweep to the right. Breece Hall, he's going to throw the ball. Pumps once, throws back in the end zone. It's caught. Mason Taylor. The option pass right by Breece Hall for a touchdown. And the Jets are a point after away from the lead.
As that play is developing, you're just assuming it's going to end in total catastrophe. You're saying incomplete, Patrick, or you're just saying insane call?
Yeah, I'm saying, what's going on? Justin Fields is having a great game. You got Breece Hall, who himself with the pump fake acknowledges, I probably shouldn't throw this. Nah, I've never completed or attempted a pass in college or in the pros. I've got one chance, and Mason Taylor bails him out with an absolute awesome. He should not have thrown that ball, though.
The irony, too, and it struck me, there was a lot of cool poetry of this game. First of all, that play not only gave the Jets the lead, but they crossed 500 offensive yards. They finished with 502 yards of offense.
We're looking at you, Bengals.
Against this Bengals defense.
Al Golden.
We are noticing. But also, early in the game, I thought that this game was going to go sideways and stay sideways after a 4th and 1 play that Justin Fields checked into a toss play to Breece Hall, and it was a huge tackle for loss. The Flacco-led Bengals turned it into a touchdown on the other side. This was going to stay sideways, and then Justin Fields just starts bawling. And so it's funny to me that Breece Hall is the one that gets a throw at the end of the game, because he shouldn't have gotten the play at the start of the game, but then he gets it at the very end, and they make hay out of it. And I love seeing this for the Jets. Aaron Glenn's first win as a head coach. I love seeing this for Justin Fields, who had a really, really hard week. Some of not just the criticism he's getting for some really bad football he's played, but also some unnecessary criticism lobbed at him by the owner of the team. Right.
And after the game, he was asked about it a lot, and he kept saying that, it was a tough week in terms of outside noise. And it's just thinking
I
like,
love that he said that.
I mean, just you've repeatedly said outside noise, but it's like
the call's coming from inside the house.
Thank you. The perfect words for it. And he handled it beautifully. And I think any team that hasn't won a game in the NFL, it wears on you. And the focus that's been directly at Justin Fields, only amplified by ownership, that made it even harder. So it was really fascinating to listen to Fields talk about it after the game.
I'm gonna get pretty vulnerable right here, but this week I kind of, I found myself in my closet crying, on the ground, laying down, not because of the hardships, not because of the troubles. I felt like, I was built to handle that, and I was put in place to handle this situation. But so I was just praying over and over and over again, like, just one win.
Yeah, and he was saying how it was really just about the losing that was getting to him. And throughout the course of the week, it was unclear, of course, that if he was going to start or not. Sure seemed like the Jets were planning to start Tyrod Taylor if he was healthy. He wound up not being healthy enough. Now, maybe Fields and Tyrod kind of knew all along. That's my suspicion, that Tyrod really wasn't going to be healthy enough to go. But you just feel happy for everyone there, including Aaron Glenn, who was also really poised after the game. Let's, in terms of talking about the win and talking about everything that went on there. But before we wrap this, so let's at least get on the Bengals a little bit here, giving up 500 yards.
502. People forget the 2.
This is one of those games you look at the rest of their schedule, and I know they have the Bears next week, which is a winnable game. And I think the Bengals offense with Flacco is showing that they can be competitive in most games, but I think it's all about managing the schedule, and they've got some really tough games before Joe Burrow could come back. At Pittsburgh, home for New England, at Baltimore, at Buffalo, home for Baltimore.
Yeah.
This was one they needed, and it just points out something we've been talking about, which is I would put this defense with the bottom 3 or 4 defenses in the NFL.
It's tough too. The Bengals, they can't get any pressure. That's part of the problem. I noticed some commentary from, they have a great group of beat reporters down there noting that, Al Golden's going to have to face the music and say, okay, I do need to blitz more, because that's the only way that they could possibly get pressure. The only way they really got pressure when they did get it all game. And Trey Hendrickson's dealing with the hip, and some of the pass rush snaps that he had, they sort of ISO cammed it, and oh my God, it looks like he's playing through a lot of
He
pain.
left at the end, he never came back.
And he left the game, he didn't come back in, and so his status for next week and beyond is in question. And it just looked, it looked difficult, it looked painful. Teams can always run the ball in them this season, but especially, 254 yards of those 502 yards were rushing. And this is a running back in Breece Hall who had not had the best productivity over the last couple of weeks. Braylon Allen was actually poised to take over before Braylon Allen got hurt early in the season. So this is a Bengals defense that is in serious, serious trouble. And yes, Joe Flacco can get them, up and down the field. And he had a couple of great sort of savvy veteran moves. The Jets were a clean operation. They only had 1 penalty, and it was in the fourth quarter. At the end of the first half, Joe Flacco on a hard count got Quinn Williams to jump off sides. It was their very first penalty of the entire game to that point. This has been a highly penalized team throughout, but they were playing pretty clean. And then Joe Flacco and the Bengals turned it into a touchdown on the other side. So I don't really worry about that side of the ball, but this defense is a mess.
Yeah, I don't worry about any side of the ball that gets Jamar Chase 19 targets.
Yeah.
He's over 40
Game
targets
plan.
in the past couple of weeks. You get the ball to your
Maybe I
players.
should. It really wasn't that efficient. 19 targets for 91 yards.
They scored 38 points.
Yes.
They did all they could. And, it wasn't just Breece Hall. Allen had a nice game.
Yeah.
Allen Davis had a nice game on the ground. And, shout out to Justin Fields. He trusted his eye. Because that's the thing.
He played great.
He's kind of seemed reluctant to put the ball in danger. He hasn't thrown a pick all season. And
wow.
He trusted his eye, even when, to Al Golden's defense against the blitz, he had a passer rating of 146 today. So the blitz, nothing works.
And think of who he's throwing to. They were without their number 2 receiver on top of missing Garrett Wilson. Josh Reynolds isn't there. So it's Tyler Johnson is easily their best receiver, who is a guy who hasn't been able to make, consistent rosters, who's like a 5th, 6th receiver type. Then it's Isaiah Davis, had a big game over 100 yards from scrimmage as a backup running back who had some big-time catches, and it's a rookie tight end, and Mason Taylor looks very promising. But, man, it's easily the least talented receiver group in the league, so they made it happen. They ran for over 250 yards on the ground, and it was all on a day that, that started with tragedy. And it's so sad to hear what happened with Nick Mangold, their longtime center. And I know a lot of the people with the Jets organization, certainly Aaron Glenn talked about it first right afterwards, just sent their thoughts to Nick Mangold and his family, who died on Sunday at 41 years old. It was on Saturday night that it happened. And if you remember, Mangold had sent a tweet out actually a couple of years ago. He was suffering with chronic kidney disease, and he was on dialysis. He was seeking a transplant, and he was looking for help there. And it just breaks your heart. A man, a father, multiple first team All-Pro, a really great player and someone that everyone that played with him at Ohio State and with the Jets just looked to him like as a leader. I remember on Around the NFL, we talked about it with Dan, Mangold might be the Jet of like the last 20 years because he was a guy who always, wasn't always easy being with the Jets, but he was there during the best days and he was always there. So rest in peace to Nick Mangold, dead at the age of 41. We'll be back on the other side.
Hurts under center. Barkley, the single setback. Hurts to Barkley, off left tackle. He's across the 45-50, 45-40. He's going to go. Saquon Barkley finally explodes. 65 yards. Hello.
I know that guy. I remember him.
Yes. Saquon Barkley. Remember me? Merrill Reese does from WIP. A tone-setting 65-yard touchdown run from Saquon Barkley. Okay, you can spend the A-Black talking about all these different teams that are just trying to keep their season alive. How about some of the teams that are already atop their division? And they're saying, yeah, we can get upset by the Giants a couple weeks ago, but we're going to restore order in the NFC East as of October 26th. Get to 6-2 with the win, 38-20 over the Giants. Saquon ends up with 150 yards on the ground. Tank Bigsby adds another 100 yards on the ground in a game that, man, Eagles fans must have loved seeing because it looks so much like last year.
Right off the bat, that's the second snap. The first, Jalen got a little wiggly on a pass attempt, threw the ball to Devontae Smith, incomplete. It's like, oh, well, his offense is going to be bad. No, the second play, Saquon goes for that 65-yard touchdown run right up there on the left side where Mailata and Dickerson blocking for him, just like 2024. And the Giants, though, come right back. Jackson Dart hits Cam Scatteraboo on a touchdown of his own. And then things got kind of wiggly on a weird officiating play. I won't say it's weird. It was just a downright jobbing on the behalf of the Stripes out there. They run the brotherly shove. Jalen Hurts extends the ball. Kayvon Thibodeau takes it away from him, rolls on the ground, then they blow the whistle, and the Giants were thinking they have the ball. But ultimately, they say that forward progress was stopped, despite the fact that there was no whistle. So Brian Daboll, for the first time on the sideline, goes absolutely ballistic, tries to challenge it. The referee, in explaining why they can't challenge it, is like, I tried to explain to the coach, like, this is all in the microphone. The referee is saying this. But ultimately, it's the Eagles' ball. Hurts hits Saquon for a touchdown. And then with about 8 minutes to go, awful play. Scatteraboo is running an angle route, gets a target from Dart. If you have a chance to not watch the play, I think it's great because it's a dislocated ankle. Mike Garafolo says he's going to have surgery in Philadelphia tonight. So it's hard to take away from that. That's the big takeaway from this game. Saquon goes on another long run later in the game. He would leave. Tank Bigsby comes in and plays great in his stead. There's like a 2nd and 26 after Hurts takes a bad sack where Tank Bigsby comes up and gets that first down.
Remember when the Eagles traded like a couple of draft picks for Tank Bigsby?
And it worked out.
That was weird for the last 6 weeks where we didn't see him.
And, having Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell play the whole game helps a little bit. But there was another opportunity involving Quinyon Mitchell that caused Brian Daboll to fully blow his top, where Darius Slayton on 4th and 11 has a long touchdown catch. They call it back for offensive pass interference, and looking at the tape, it did not appear to be offensive pass interference. And yeah, fun. You can watch that replay because Daboll, you can see heat waves coming off of his head.
You hate to put the game in those calls. Ultimately, the Eagles outgained the Giants, 427 to 246.
Yeah, it was a blowout.
But you also, if you're a Giants fan, hate to see those calls come up so big, especially the Kayvon one, who that's when the game is still in doubt. And he called it BS after the game. And then Brian Burns was listening to him nearby and said, hey, man, stop that. You'll get fined. And then Kayvon was like, that was a great call, actually. So we'll see if the retroactive great call saves him. But you're right. Scatteraboo, unfortunately, down, of course, we don't expect him back. And I saw the report today that Malik Neighbors is also getting his surgery this weekend. And you just think about what could have been with this Giants season. And unfortunately, I have to take the Rob Lowe hat off for this one, and like we're crossing off the Giants now, and it's a shame considering where we were. Forget 2 weeks ago. How about 5 quarters ago? You know, like it really felt like this was going to be something fun to watch, and now it's going to be different. It's going to be very challenging, I think, for Jackson Dart and them to come up with an offense that works.
Yeah, and he recognized that. He talked at the podium after the game about how upset he is. He hates losing. I think that's fair. For me, I appreciate when people, no matter their profession, like earnestly feel their feelings and aren't really shy about that. You could see this entire team, how much that hurt, having Scatterboo, be carted off. Every single one of those players came to, wish him well and fist pound him. And Jackson, this one actually really did twinge at the old heartstring. Jackson Dart came over and gave him a little head bump, a little their little head tap that they do to each other. He gave him one of those as he was on the cart. It's tough. And for me, I wasn't going to see a sweep of the Eagles. Like, I just didn't think that was happening. It was good to see Saquon Barkley show flashes of his old self. And I want to point out, like, the Eagles, they did look like the Eagles, but a little bit different because 8 of Saquon Barkley's 14 carries were either with 6 offensive linemen, right? So heavier personnel, or 3 tight ends, or 2 tight ends. And so they were loading up and basically saying, we are going to will this run game to happen, where previously Saquon Barkley just was not getting the yardage we're used to seeing from him.
You saw different personnel, in part maybe because A.J. Brown is not on the field, but you do wonder if they're going to use that more later. A.J. Brown was inactive for this game. They're hoping, according to Ian Rappaport, that he is back after the bye. And also, like, you don't want to take Dallas Goedert off the field. He's got 7. He's got 2 more touchdowns today. He's got 7 on the season. To quote Jordan Mailata, dude, he's unreal. How many touchdowns does he have now? And we almost didn't bring him back. Can you believe that? How funny is that?
What a great quote by Jordan Mailata.
Feel your feelings, everybody.
I feel like they lined up Dallas Goedert out wide as A.J. Brown, like role playing as A.J. Brown on one of those touchdowns where he gets matched up against the safety, and it was advantage. And to be honest, the Giants secondary already dealing with injuries. It was a tough move for them. Where late in the game, Eagles making plays, and they already were giving up a lot of deep passes. And so it's rough considering the injuries. And the defensive deployment, we saw 70% of Cooper DeJean lined up at slot corner, and I think that's the move for the remainder of the season. We're just not seeing DeJean at safety. He's going to be around making plays, being the star on the defense.
I love that, and I think Vic Fangio is going to be adaptable and changing to what he sees in front of him. But why mess with what's working? And they just look more like themselves the last couple of weeks. And yeah, Cordell Flott, who's been the best cornerback for the Giants, got hurt again in this game. So
Jalen Hurts played great, only threw it 20 times. Incredibly clean game, 4 touchdowns, 179 yards, 141.5 passer rating.
His numbers for the last 2 weeks are insane for a guy who threw a total of 45 passes. Like half of them are for touchdowns seemingly. So yeah, everything is good. It's happy for Philadelphia. And what the heck? Let's listen to how familiar it feels to Saquon Barkley, who didn't forget what happened in the Meadowlands.
It's always great to win. It's always great to be a division rival. For sure, we definitely saw how they celebrated, and when they beat us last time, got the win, going to a bye. It's good to get away from each other for a little bit also.
Just sprinkle that one in at the end.
You could actually hear Mike Garafolo, and that is courtesy of Mike Garafolo's Twitter account, laugh a little bit when Saquon said that. Oh, I'm sure they won't make too big of a deal out of that quote.
Eagles hate each other.
We will see if, after the bye, A.J. Brown is back on the field. So the Eagles get the job done. Some separation in the NFC East. Suddenly looking like pretty heavy favorites to repeat in that division. Would the same be true for the 4-time defending NFC South champs?
Second down, a long one. They move right. Shotgun look, hand the ball. Play action fake. Rattler throws a pass upfield. It is batted down.
Intercepted.
Picked off, and a touchdown for the Buccaneers.
It's Anthony Nelson. So Anthony Nelson
with a forced fumble and a pick 6.
Oh, yeah. It was the Anthony Nelson game.
It was.
Gene Deckerhoff Dave Moore, WFUS. Yes, they mentioned two of Anthony Nelson's bigger plays early in that game. You know what else he did? He had a couple sacks. Everyone on this Buccaneers defense got to eat. But when Anthony Nelson is getting the post-game interview on the field, you know something special is happening. It's a bad sign there for the Saints offense in 2025 when that is happening. Man, Antoine Winfield was an absolute beast in this game. Yaya Diaby actually had the most quick pressures, 3 of them for this defense. Vita Vea was making noise in this game. Jamel Dean continued a streak of making a massive play every single week for seemingly the entire season. He had a forced fumble in this game, and on a day where they pulled the ripcord on the agenda, Spencer Rattler getting benched in the third quarter, the Buccaneers win 23-3 to move to 6-2 on the season. Sorry, I didn't want to have fun at the expense of Spencer Rattler. It's a tough day for us agenda folks, but let's talk positive. Let's talk Bucs to start.
Yeah, the Buccaneers make the plays, especially Nelson, who you think about the past couple of weeks where they all go up to Detroit hurt, have a great performance by the opposing team. Nelson is on the receiving end of a 4th down highlight play by Jahmyr Gibbs where he puts him in the dirt and goes on to score later on in that drive. And to come back and get that tip interception and the sack that you mentioned as well, where the Saints offense, Rattler or Shuck, really had no answer long term to the Bucs making plays. And I still believe at the punch out play, Antoine Winfield picked that ball up that Jamel Dean forced and scored a touchdown. I'm not sure how they ruled Jamel Dean had possession of the ball and was down. That could have been another defensive touchdown by the Bucs, but a dominant performance going into the bye. And we always say well-deserved and well-timed, but
yes,
for the Bucs in 2025, Week 9 is the perfect opportunity to not play football.
This was a mature, professional championship performance to just get there comfortably on a day where their offense couldn't do much of anything. And that's why I say it's professional, because sometimes you just need one side of the ball, just carry the other side of the ball. And that happened today. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs had 212 yards of offense. The Saints defense kept stopping them on the goal line, 7 straight plays on the 1 yard line over 2 different possessions. One time it was 4 straight downs. It was all these runs where they kept stopping it, and they almost did it again. And finally, Sean Tucker broke through, and that made it 14-3 in the third quarter. But that was only, that was the one long drive the Buccaneers offense had all day. But that's all they needed to have, because one side of the ball had them locked down.
A lot of times when Greg and I are watching different games and I don't have full vision of whatever game Greg is watching, then I just listen for kind of what he says or some of the things he says out loud as he's watching. And he just kept going, oh my gosh. But it was both sides. Baker Mayfield played.
It was like Chase Young beating Tristan Wirfs over and over again, too, that I said it to as well, to be fair.
Yeah. And Baker Mayfield had another, I would say, bad game. I would like to issue a request to all of the talking heads and national media out there. Would really love it if everyone just stopped talking about Baker Mayfield in the MVP conversation, because he clearly keeps on rolling, baby.
I mean, look in the mirror.
I've never said that 3-letter word. I've never said it.
Fair.
That's the thing. He needs the chip on his shoulder. You could hear him the past 2 weeks. He was manufacturing it for himself. He was coming up with reasons to be angry and pissed off and play his particular brand of football. He has not looked good the last 2 weeks. That man is happy for a bye week. I'm telling you. And then hopefully get some of his guys back after.
It was, and really considering the struggles in the quarterback change, kind of a wasted performance of a very good performance, not just from the Saints front. Chase Young had a strip sack where he got the ball and then he's running like he's going to have an option pitch, and that was weird. They didn't even know what to do with their success. Alante Taylor had a couple of great pass breakups on the rookie star where we've seen Emeka Egbuka do so much. Didn't really get going today.
9 targets, 3 catches.
There was a moment where Baker Mayfield is looking directly at Kool-Aid McKinstry, and for some reason throws the ball directly at Kool-Aid McKinstry at the corner of the end zone, where they were really locking up the Bucs today. But if the offense can't do anything, it's not really going to matter.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Winfield nearly had a touchdown. There was a point in this game where it felt like every other play the Bucs almost scored a defensive touchdown. Yeah. It was just getting crazy, which is why I did not have a problem with the timing of the Spencer Rattler benching as much as I believe in him. Last week, I thought he had the turnovers, but he sort of bounced back, and most of his plays look like he's looked all year. Today, even though the numbers look okay, 15 for 21, he had a couple more turnovers. That's 6 turnovers in about 6 quarters. And I thought he wasn't a little bit of his head, and he was in a bad place where he was almost playing too safe, and he was making mistakes. And so it felt like a worthy time to give Shuck a spin. The problem is everyone else on the Saints offense is not playing well right now either. The offensive line without Eric McCoy was cheeks today, like giving up a ton of pressure. Alvin Kamara and the running game is really poor right now. Alvin Kamara more or less is getting benched now on 3rd downs because he's been such a problem as a pass protector. Chris Olave, had a play where he almost fumbled it. That was the one I think that got called back, and he left a little banged up at one point. Rashid Shaheed had one fumble that stood, another one that could have stood, so they're not like winning these contested catches. And ultimately, Shuck comes in and somehow throws 30 passes in 4 drives. They don't score any points on him, and it was like 4 yards per attempt. And he ends up with an interception on a ball that Shaheed got ripped away from him. And it was just like, it's just all bad. Yeah. There's just like no real bright spot to point out of anything there. That doesn't leave you anywhere to go, Jourdan. Yes, I apologize.
But all I could think of was, the guy who was absolutely losing his mind in the stands when Tyler Shuck came in. I wonder what that guy's doing right now. I wonder what his reaction and takeaway was from the game. He clearly, and you could see there are a couple of...
Describe it for the people that didn't see it.
Oh, my God. It was this guy who was wearing a Tyler Shuck jersey, I believe. And when Tyler Shuck finally came into the game, he lost it. He was waving his arms. He was yelling. I think I read his lips. It took too effing long. He was absolutely... So I just, when you were saying all this stuff, I started daydreaming a little, Greg. I was just wondering, what is that guy doing right now?
I'm so glad that Mickey Loomis will watch the game among the fans wearing his Tyler Shuck jersey. No. It shows that he's a man of the people.
I mean, they made a change at quarterback. My gut would say they'll stick with Shuck for the next Saints start. We'll see. But that's not the change they need to make. You just mentioned the man who, to me, I think they risk losing the most diehard fan base, one of them certainly, in the league if they don't, because they're getting to apathy point. And this is what it looks like. Yeah. Everyone wanted the Saints to tank, and they tried as hard as they could not to tank, but this is what it looks like when you do tank. Let's go to Denver, where there's no tanking teams. There's a team that's just getting in gear.
Harvey resets to the left of Nix, 3 to the right. Harvey in the flat, wide open. Harvey gathers it in, tiptoes into the end zone. Touchdown, Denver. Bo Nix's 4th touchdown pass of the game. And for R.J. Harvey, that is his 3rd touchdown. First by pass. And with 7:14 left in this one, it is all but over in the Mile High City. It's Denver 43, Dallas 17.
Ooh, the 4th quarter of week 7 rolled right on into week 8. A 40 burger for the Broncos against a defense that has served up some 40 burgers this season. It's the house specialty in Dallas. They did it on the road today, 44-24. And the 6-2 Broncos hasn't always been pretty this season, but they got to feel great where they're at, whereas the Cowboys fall to 3-4 and just kind of an every other week type of team, and the Broncos found a defense that they could just victimize.
Just complete command by the Broncos offense against a Cowboys defense that I fear to say is back to its new normal for this season after a pretty good week 7 last week. That was, as the broadcast announced, R.J. Harvey's 3rd touchdown. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns to open the game, including one where he took a direct snap. And he's a former quarterback, so it shouldn't have surprised the Cowboys defense the way that it did. But it did because, in part, they got to the line of scrimmage really, really fast before the defense could read and react to even the alignment. Bo Nix was kicked out and declared as a receiver. And that was a moment that showed me how much command this Broncos offense had over this defense. At halftime, The Broncos had 264 yards of offense and 9.1 yards per play, almost an entire first down every time they touched the football in the first half. And this was such a lopsided game that Joe Milton himself was playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys midway through the fourth quarter.
I do think sometimes the key sequences of games are right off the top. And when the Cowboys got to stop, Bo Nix starts off like Bo Nix has been doing so often this season, scattershot, and throws an interception to the Cowboys on the very first possession. Mm-hmm. And the Cowboys get down to the 1 yard line, and they have a second and goal from the 1. They also had a first and goal from the 3, and they throw an incompletion. They have an offensive line penalty, and ultimately they don't score on another incompletion. Like that to me is great complimentary football. It's something we haven't always seen from the Broncos this year, but I think it was like a case of the defense kind of having the Broncos back, and then Bo Nix, became the best Bo Nix that we've seen all season.
Yeah.
And we had to see the Broncos defense for the majority of the game, because on that drive that you mentioned, Dak throws a ball to George Pickens where that's a touchdown 99 times out of 100, but Pat Surtain comes up, knocks the ball away, comes down, has a lower leg injury, leaves the game, would come back to the game, but then leaves with a shoulder injury and doesn't return. And so you're in this situation where Riley Moss, who's getting targeted more than almost every other cornerback in the NFL, is having to deal with CeeDee Lamb, has multiple pass interference calls, but the defense holds up, and they hold, because the Milton to Tolbert touchdown was an absolute garbage time.
Yeah.
So the 24 points is fraudulent. It was a great performance by Vance Joseph's defense without the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and here's the thing, with and without Pat Surtain, and hopefully he's okay. I was worried. I mentioned to Greg, I was worried watching him on the broadcast walk to the locker room, because he was sort of pointing to and sort of feeling his, underneath his pectoral, almost to the side of, closer to his armpit, which made me worried. That could be really serious. We hope he's okay. He's so fun to watch, great player. But I thought Vance Joseph had a great plan for every single one of Dak Prescott's preferred targets, generally speaking, in a season where mostly Dak Prescott is playing incredible football. They kept bracketing different receivers as a secondary, right? So they were sort of picky. They were playing matchup-based football that you really only usually will see from a team, especially a defense, in the postseason or deep into the season. And they were playing that type of football. They were pressuring. They were pressuring well, or at least well enough. Only a couple of sacks, but really well enough to really get Dak off his spot. Ferguson only had one target in the entire first half, and they just had good plans for coverage of everything, despite the fact that they were dealing with the personnel issues. Jahdae Barron played probably his best game of the season, had a takeaway on Dak Prescott. They are playing so confidently on both sides of the ball. And when their quarterback meets the moment, like he did today, even after the initial error, they really have something.
I think that's so well said. And it just makes me think about how many different paths the Broncos have had to win games this season. They have so many different parts of their team, either line. On a certain day like today, like Bo Nix gets it going. They've had days where Harvey and Dobbins pops up. Their defense hasn't been elite every single week, but sometimes it's a secondary. Whereas the Cowboys have such a narrow path to win every week. Yeah. They have one way to win, and if it's not Dak's day or it's a tough matchup, no one's gonna pick Dak up. Unfortunately, you mentioned the pass rush for the Broncos, Jourdan. 8 different players had quick pressures for that team, which you almost never see. And 6 different players had multiple pressures. And Benito and Jonathan Cooper had 5 of those quick pressures between them. But I do want to give Bo Nix some love before we move on from this game, because there were some dots in the second half of this game.
Oh my gosh, he made some throws. There was one throw that he made that actually Courtland Sutton dropped. It was a should-be touchdown, and if this game was going to swing, that would have been the moment where the Dallas Cowboys could have tried to mount a comeback. But then Bo Nix hits Courtland Sutton a couple of times late in the game, one of them a 39-yard pass, and it's just beautiful. It's just a thing of beauty. And whole shot, defender crashing in. It's ahead of him. It leads him well. Even with a defender crashing in, the timing of it is perfect, because he is going to get absolutely smoked if that ball gets to him even a little bit later. Bo Nix, I thought, played some really mature football today, and it helped that a supporting cast rose up right there with him. I just think that this was a fully, the most complete game to a position we've seen from the Denver Broncos this season.
Yeah, they are rounding into form, and Cortland Sutton ends up with 4 for 67, which to me is like the ultimate Cortland Sutton line. He's just a 4 for 67 type of guy, still getting it done. He's on pace for 1,000 yards again, still around like 15 yards per catch on the season. Like, there just aren't that many guys like him that consistent year after year. Let's go to a team that I know has been annoying Jourdan, that you could describe as perhaps the least consistent team in the NFL, to Atlanta.
2nd down and 8 from the Falcon 43. Play action, fakes, slant to Waddle. Waddle's got a 20, 10, 5, touchdown Miami.
What a great fake, and he put it right on the money with Waddle and stride going across the middle, and nobody was going to catch that man.
Oh, Joe Rose with a little help from Jimmy Cephalo on WBGG. The Miami Dolphins needed a win in the worst way, and they got it 34-10 in Atlanta over the Kirk Cousins-led Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, there were a lot of surprising injury situations this week that we were unaware of when we did our preview show. No Michael Penix in this game, no Drake London, but it was really the offense of the Miami Dolphins who put this game away, and it was a laugher to the point where Tua Tagovailoa is doing bits after he gets his touchdown.
Yeah, coming into the game with conjunctivitis, which I had no idea that this was an issue or that you could play an NFL game.
Pink eye, right?
Pink eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
pink eye.
Which one is that one? Yeah.
Using the official terminology. Joe Burrow got me to look up the real name of turf toe, which I've already forgotten. But so they get the first quarter touchdown from Tua, which hadn't happened in 13 games. Where the Dolphins are getting a touchdown pass to start off. They had a couple of explosive runs from Devon Achane, a couple of drops as well. We were thinking, oh, this is the 2025 Dolphins. But no, he gets Achane in the flat for 6 because there was no Darren Waller in this game. A quick 3 and out. The Falcons has another nice drive. The Dolphins have another nice drive. Tua running to his left with the eye, which is basically almost swollen shut on that side, fires a seeing eyeball, oddly enough, to Malik Washington for his first career receiving touchdown, 16-3. And so you saw, if you're watching us on YouTube, you saw the Jalen Waddle touchdown where he's pulling away from Falcons in the secondary. And I haven't mentioned the Kirk Cousins Falcons offense because they had 58 yards in the first half.
Wow.
A solid game from Tua and the offense, but there's been a couple of those. This is either the best Dolphins defensive performance of the year far and away, or a woe is me situation where, pending our lengthy conversation we had on the preview show about the pistol, I'm going into next gen stats. I'm like, can I blame this bad Cousins performance on the pistol? No, they were bad under center. The one time they were under center, they were bad in the shotgun. It was nasty in the pistol. There was one point where Darnell Mooney wins on a dig, and Kirk Cousins literally throws the ball 12 feet over his head and starts pounding himself on the helmet. I don't really know what was going on.
We got to look for that. That'll be for Wednesday's show as a potential worst throw of the year candidate. I also am going to submit the play where Tyler Shook hit a cheerleader with Rashid Shaheed going wide open for a touchdown.
Bruh.
He just nailed it. Just wasn't great. But to answer your question in terms of like best Dolphins offense or worst Falcons defense, why not both? Why not everything?
It could be both. It definitely statistically, I believe, was the Dolphins defense's best run defense of the game. They held Bijan Robinson to 2.6 yards per carry, and Tyler Algier 2.6 yards per carry. They were the 29th ranked run defense entering the game. This team irritates me.
They
irritate me. The Falcons irritate me. I think we kind of came into this game knowing that pretty much anything that was above rock bottom for Miami's defense would be good, and they showed up. And Miami's offense has not looked terrible for the past couple of weeks. Certainly since, they, even with the Tyreek Hill absence, they haven't looked awful even without Darren Waller. They made their plays. This offense, they have the best player in football right now, perhaps, in Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 1 every 5 freaking games, they have a game plan that funnels their entire offense through him legitimately as a mismatch, as a threat. They help him help himself, which good scheme and good players do. And I'm not seeing it. I don't know what this Falcons team is. I don't know what their identity is. Their defense was playing pretty great at the start of the season, much better than people expected, but they absolutely blew it today. What are you? Who are you?
Well, even the parts that were successful, because that Jalen Waddle touchdown came after Bijan had a fumble in the red zone in one of their better scoring opportunities of the day. And the offense was running through Kyle Pitts today. He had 9 targets. He caught all of them. Unfortunately, it was only for 59 yards, where it just looked clunky. And I guess the ideal situation to find a silver lining is, well, right before the deadline, if Kirk Cousins comes in here and plays well, and then we get Penix back and we can ship Kirk off. No, all that's gone because it just looked like a mess.
And I think they have such a unique defense that you cannot count on them to be a dominant defense every week. I know statistically they have been for the most part until this week, but it's so game plan specific. It's not based on having more talent that those types of defenses are going to pop off 6, 8, 10 times a year, if at best. But if you're not talented enough, you're going to need your offense to carry you every once in a while. It's an offensive league, and they've been pretty consistent on offense in terms of being disappointing. I know there's been like 1 or 2 games, but for the most part, they've been a mediocre offense, and they now trail the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by 2.5 games in the NFC South. That is a significant margin that they need to make up.
And they're ruining the reputation of our beloved pistol formation.
Yes.
God.
And I don't think they're going to fix it. So good on Mike McDaniel, because, before I say goodbye to you guys, and we're going to welcome in Nick Shook, and you guys get to go home and say hi to Tucker, say hi to your beautiful children, Patrick. I'm going to put the Rob Lowe hat back on and say, I'm glad it wouldn't be all misery on Thursday Night Football. The Dolphins are coming in with a victory, and so are the Ravens.
Yeah. One of those teams is so back.
Yeah, one of those teams is back. The other one, at least, we don't just have to hear about someone getting fired all week.
I know.
I'm going to see if down in wardrobe or in costume, if we have the Rob Lowe hat somewhere.
I feel like we probably
I need to get that for Greg.
I can't wait. Who would wear that hat? Who's all ball all the time? It's Nick Shook. We'll be back on the other side to talk about the best offense in the NFL. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Great job.
Under center, Jones on first down. They give it to Taylor, left side. He's at the 20, 25, 30, 35, down the sideline, 40, 50-yard line, still going. Taylor up in the sideline. He's got a chance. 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor takes it 80 yards to the house. Tight roping that left sideline. No problem for the great running back going right now. It's the longest rush this season for the Colts and for Taylor.
Oh, that's Matt Taylor. Talking about Jonathan Taylor, no relation. WFNI. The Colts and the Titans were potentially the biggest mismatch you could create if you just looked at the numbers this year in terms of the offense versus the defense. And that's exactly what happened. 38-14. The Colts run away with it. They take care of business every week as favorites. They pass all these tests. Many more are to come, Shook. But how impressed are you with this Colts offense right now?
I think I was one of the last people on the planet to get on board with the Colts just because I'm a skeptic.
Oh, some people are still holding out. Nick Wright doesn't have them in his top 10 teams. That's preposterous.
Give me a break. Well, over the last 2 weeks, I've seen everything I need to. Yes, they played the Titans. Yes, they were supposed to roll, but it's the fashion in which they roll. Their offensive line blocks well. They have Daniel Jones throwing the ball all over the yard. He's got all day to throw most times, and when he has to scramble, he makes plays. He threw a touchdown pass to Josh Downs on a scramble today. That was a perfect demonstration of quarterback and receiver rapport and understanding. And they have Jonathan Taylor, who's having an incredible start to the season. We're almost halfway through the season now. The guy's got 4 games of 3 or more touchdowns. If he gets 2 more games like that the rest of the season, he'll tie LaDainian Tomlinson for the most in NFL history. LT won the MVP that season. It was 2006. They have everything in their favor right now. Even their defense is playing better than expected. Of course, they won in a romp today.
So 174 yards from scrimmage for Taylor. And I love that he did it on only 14 touches. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like 12 runs for 153 and then has a couple catches. He's been complete. They get Josh Downs back today, which I think really rounds out their offense. One of the best slot receivers in the league. And yeah, I think in terms of weapons, 1 to 5, they are better, deeper than any team in the league. And then in terms of their offensive line, I think they're top 5. So yeah. I'm kind of, this is not, talking to anyone in particular. Oh, what the hell? We'll talk to Nick Wright. He listens to the show. Like, they are, to me, the second most likely team to make the Super Bowl in the AFC. We're not usually about takes here on Sundays, but I just don't think that's a crazy take at all. First of all, they're 7-1, and so they're going to have a good chance at not just winning the division, but possibly getting a 1 seed. But second of all, offense travels, and I've seen enough that this offense is going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL, full stop. And other than the Chiefs, there's just so many questions. Where are these great defenses in the AFC that are going to stop the Colts? I just don't see a team that's more likely than the Colts. Sorry, Bills fans, than to make the Super Bowl. Other than the Kansas City Chiefs, I will give them their flowers.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And this is not a take that I came to today. This is not an agreement that I came to today because they rolled the Titans. It's because of what they do week by week. And this was a performance in which it was 17-7 at halftime. And they had the advantage, but they hadn't quite dominated. It felt like they were still a couple of plays away from completely running away, which they did. Taylor literally running away to an 80-yard touchdown. But it's the fact that they can do this week by week consistently, and they didn't fall victim to a divisional rivalry game and even let it get really close in the second half. They put them away like they did it in their sleep, like they knew they were the superior team. They're just playing complete football. Oh, and also, by the way, they have, I don't know what it is about them to this point this season, but it seems like every game there's just a stretch in which everything goes their way. And Michael Pittman makes an incredible catch in this game over the middle where the ball gets tipped up in the air, and it's like the sea of hands. It's like the DeAndre Hopkins Hail Mary when he was with the Cardinals. There's just a ball in the air, and he's surrounded by Titans, and somehow, as he's running, he tracks it, brings it down, and then a few plays later, Jones throws a seed down the sideline to him, and he's got a defender draped all over him, hanging all over him. He can't use his left arm because he's hanging all over him. And Jones fits it right into his armpit, and he just traps it with his other arm, makes one of the most incredible, unlikely touchdown catches you'll see this season. Everything goes in their favor, but they set themselves up for success, which is why I'm a believer in them. Yeah, but that catch is just amazing athleticism and a dime from Mr. Jones. Let's listen to it. One of the plays of the year.
Colts near the red zone now. Out of the pistol. Actually, they're going to move Jonathan Taylor to the right of Jones out of the gun now. Ball on the right hash. Shotgun snap for Jones. Looking left. He's going to take a shot and throws a laser towards the pylon. And that is a catch for Michael Pittman Jr. There's a penalty on the play, but Pittman scores a touchdown as Pittman snared it in with one hand on a 21-yard absolute dart thrown by Daniel Jones to Michael Pittman Jr.
This group, what a ridiculous catch by Pittman, who's having a great year. He goes 8 for 95. He's just so talented. And Daniel Jones has so much confidence. The play that I'll remember from this game is Jones for the second straight week, just throwing it as far as he can possibly throw it. Alec Pierce is down there somewhere, and he mossed the Titans for a 50-yard catch. So you're seeing these great individual plays, and we're going to get to see the Colts tested again and again in the second half of this season. They have a game at Pittsburgh next week, but they have a game at the Chiefs. They have an at the Seattle. They still have 2 games against the Texans and the 49ers. So I just love that they're just part of our lives. And yes, if you're watching on YouTube, in the break, shout out to Chris Babona, shout out to Drew Christensen. They got me a Rob Lowe hat, and I'm wearing it. And
you look like you're in the replay center.
I definitely would like to either be a replay center guy or maybe like an offensive assistant that's just like grinding some numbers and telling the coach like when to go for it or not. Great game by them, and there's not much to talk about with the Titans right now. I do like that Chimere Dike has been a way bigger factor. It looked like they found 2 rookie receivers on the Titans, so let's just give the Titans like a little lollipop here for DK and Io Manor.
Yeah, Io Manor and DK both kind of settling into their roles. It's just that you can tell they're both rookies and they lack talent otherwise. Ridley was not out there again today. And it became very evident to me in the third quarter when they were down, I think, 21-7 or 31-7, that they were essentially just dedicating the rest of the game to continuing Cam Ward's development. They knew they weren't going to get back in the game. They're not going to ask him to throw 60 passes. They're going to mix in the run. They're going to try and insulate him and see that development through, which is fine with me. You've already fired your coach. Commit the rest of the season to developing your quarterback. He's the number 1 overall pick.
I've had a correction. This is very important. It was not Drew Christensen. It was Drew Lee in the back. That makes more sense because I was like...
Drew is a wool knit guy.
Yes.
He does not wear hats.
I got it.
There you go.
That's totally fair. And yeah, I mentioned DK. He's a rookie mid-round pick who goes 7 for 93 today. So a little positivity. I think Cam Ward actually has looked a little better and steadier the last couple weeks since they made the head coaching change, but ultimately doesn't help out. They're 1-7. Colts at 7-1. Let's go to Carolina, where the Bills were coming off their bye week.
Receiver to each side on this 2 tight end set. Pause in motion. Handoff to Cook. Through a hole. And darts into the open. And he is G-O-N-E gone. 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, James Cook. As the cook is in the kitchen for the first time in 3 games.
Wow, I'm surprised it's been that long. It feels like James Cook has been running all over opponents all season, but Bills fans will remind you, the run game been pretty absent the last couple weeks. That was not the case today. James Cook ends up with 216 yards on the ground. That was one of his 2 touchdowns. Almost 80% of his runs went for at least 5 yards, and the old Carolina Panthers run defense showed up 40-9 for the Buffalo Bills, coming through for me, who took them -7 on our picks against the spread show. So thank you, Buffalo Bills. There to 5-2 on the season. Carolina can't get it done with Andy Dalton at quarterback, but let's give the Bills some love. What did you see out of them coming out of their bye week, Nick?
I mean, obviously a shift back to relying on James Cook. I mean, I'm the guy who has complained about this in their losses and their recent, underwhelming performances. So you go to James Cook against a stingy run defense, at least statistically, and you just ride him to success. 19 for 216 and 2 rushing touchdowns. That long run there, that wasn't the only one. He's so smooth. He's so fun to watch. He's got great vision. He's got great burst, and they should go lean on him a lot and take some of the pressure off of Josh Allen, especially with a passing game that's just not as explosive as it's been in previous years. So that's great. But also on the defensive side, they finally showed up. They get Maxwell Hairston, finally. He makes his NFL debut. He has 1 tackle, but he's on the field. They lose Ed Oliver to an injury, and yet they still bottle up the Carolina rushing attack, which put together, I think, 30 or 40 yards in the fourth quarter, which was garbage time. Otherwise, they shut that down. Andy Dalton's playing quarterback, and the Bills feasted on that. The Panthers turned the ball over 3 times. They got after Dalton plenty. It looked more like a Bills defense of old. Now, I'm not going to say that this is what we're going to see every week because you're playing the Panthers with Andy Dalton at quarterback, but it was really encouraging to see them play cohesively out of the bye week, especially after the struggles they've had recently.
And the pass rush looked good in this game, and it really hasn't all year. And the Panthers have played well on the offensive line this year. Now, they lose Brady Christensen. It sounds like a season-ending injury to him. He's been playing. And then Taylor Moton, their right tackle, also left this game. So there were injuries, but there were some real changes. We were talking about, what would be different for the Bills coming out of the bye. You mentioned Cook. You mentioned Hairston gets in the mix, rotating in with Tre'Davious White. They benched Terrell Bernard. That was a pretty clear change. So Shaq Thompson, I guess, is the guy who really takes his role. Bernard didn't have a single defensive snap, and he was healthy for this game. Dorian Williams has been in there too. And they also get Michael Hoyt back from a suspension, and he had a ton of pressures. He was on the field the most of all their edge rush guys. They also get Larry Ogunjobi back from suspension. So 2 of their big free agency pickups kind of quietly return from suspension. There were real differences. We'll see if it keeps up, but a good get back to who they thought they would be game for the Bills. And that includes at least one big play through the air. Yes, Josh Allen was in this game, 12 for 19 for 163 yards and 1 long touchdown.
Allen going to work from the shotgun here. 2 receivers to the right, 1 to the left, and now Shavers in motion right to left. Here's the snap. Back to pass. Quick hitter to Shakir. Spins away from the defender. He's up the sideline. 35-30. Down to the 20. Cuts it back 15. 10. 5. Touchdown. Khalil Shakir. Old reliable. Goes 54 yards to the end zone. Touchdown Buffalo.
Old reliable. The guy's 25 years old, but in this receiver group, I get what he's saying. He's kind of the safe guy saying, we don't need some explosive threat. I think they still do. They might pick one up before the trading deadline, but Shakir, they don't have to worry about him. One other change I did want to mention, Sean McDermott revealed after the game he was calling plays along with Bobby Babich on defense. So that's a little bit of a change too coming out of the bye. Him taking more control. Are you more thinking this is a reveal of the Panthers not really being contenders now at 4-4, or just that the Bills are getting back to who they are?
I think it could be a little bit of both because I don't want to discount the way the Bills dominated today. Like that touchdown there was the official point in which the tone of the broadcasters went from this is a game to this is a blowout. Let's get into the blowout material. So, I mean, credit to them for really dropping the hammer on the Panthers. But I also think it was a check with reality that the Panthers maybe aren't as good as they thought they were. And it makes you go back and review who they've played. They played a lot of porous defenses, which statistically, this should have been a tough or a great matchup for them on the ground, and it wasn't. So I think that it's a reminder that it is still difficult to turn the corner in the NFL when you're trying to, revive a franchise like Dave Canales is with the Panthers, and probably a good reality check for them at this point in the season. But yeah, if I had to answer that, it's probably more Panthers than Bills, but it's still really good to see the Bills get a win like this because they needed it.
Yeah, I think some of those changes on defense, we'll see if they continue to bear fruit. And I do worry about Ed Oliver because they said it was a biceps injury, which always worries you. I did want to point out, by the way, Shook, why not here, that I was at a wedding in New Orleans this weekend. Shout out to Lloyd D'Souza for having a wedding. It's pretty rare to go to a first wedding now in our mid-40s. So congratulations on making that happen. But I didn't know if I'd ever do a second line down the street, down Bourbon Street again for a wedding in New Orleans. So that was a lot of fun. But big takeaway for me, because I'm always thinking NFL Daily, big NFL Daily fan came up to me at the wedding, big time listener, and he just wanted to pass along that he is such a big Nick Shook fan. And that makes 2 straight trips I've been on where people I don't know have come up to me and say they're huge Nick Shook fans. So that's a pretty big deal. We need more really Shook in our lives.
I'm bad at taking compliments, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No, I when he said that, I was like, and it was not that long ago. I actually woke up in New Orleans this morning. I feel like I was just at that wedding. It was not that long ago that I was like, I will get that to Nick Shook. So for all the Shook heads out there, we see you. We love you. We love Shooky too. Let's do one more game with him before Sunday Night Football. Let's go to Foxborough.
53 rushing yards for Drake May. Works from the left hash of the 39. He takes the shotgun snap. He's back to throw. He loads up a long ball, lofted downfield. Open man! Touchdown! Kayshon Boutte!
What a weapon! Number 9.
What a pretty throw.
Kayshon Boutte has played himself into one hell of a player for you. Really.
He really has. Drake May has too. 32-13. The Patriots take care of business after an early deficit. They were down 7-3 in this game. It was only 9-7 Patriots at halftime, but a third quarter explosion out of Drake May. And that play is a reminder, Shook, just based on efficiency, accuracy. The most effective play in the NFL this year is not the Josh Allen scramble, as I've often said. It's the Drake May deep pass. The numbers are just outrageous, and he was 2 for 3 in this game on throws over 20 yards for 81 yards, and it's just been crazy. When he goes deep, they get touchdowns.
Yeah, and oftentimes those deep passes end up in the hands of Kayshon Boutte, who, like Scott Zolak said, has played himself into one hell of a player. I'm a little concerned about Zolak's mental state, his health over the course of a season, because if Boutte continues to play like this, is he still going to be sane by the time we get to week 18? That's how well Boutte is playing with Drake May. And really, it's funny because this was a game that was a bit of a slog in the first half. The Browns defense did a good job of limiting the Patriots, but you felt like they were approaching an explosion. And then you get to the third quarter, and that play right there, that touchdown pass to Boutte was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the one that opened the floodgates, whatever cliche you want to use to describe how it became a blowout victory. And another example of Drake May, who, by the way, got sacked 5 times by Myles Garrett today, is unflappable. He is unflappable. It doesn't matter how many times the pass rush is getting after him, because Myles Garrett wasn't the only player with a sack in this game. And yet, despite all of that pressure and all of that harassment, he just stayed locked in, and he ends up with another great line, 18-24 for 282, 3 touchdowns and an early pick. That was probably the worst mistake he's made all year. And it didn't matter, because the Patriots, they are a Mike Vrabel team. They will fight through adversity, and they will see it all the way to the end and run away with the victory like they did today.
They almost double up the Browns in terms of total yardage, 422-213. These Patriots games are looking awfully similar every week, which is they feel it out in the first half and they make adjustments, and the defense especially plays better in the second half. And I think Josh McDaniels and May have just been such a dynamite combination. You saw it in the first drive coming out of halftime. McDaniels knew exactly what to do. It was a run-heavy drive with a lot of Travion Henderson breaking a couple big plays. They also had a couple. plays that if they didn't work, everyone would say, oh, why'd you get so cute? You know, they had a running back pass back to Drake May, which ended up in the hands of Mac Hollins, which worked out. McDaniels loves those sort of plays. You had a Demario Douglas run that was an effective run. Like, McDaniels has had a knack for calling the right play and making it easy on May to then set up the tougher stuff later. And they've been really good in terms of dissecting what the defense is trying to do. And in the end, this stat was from Ben Solak at ESPN. The Patriots end up with a 54.5% drop back success rate in this game, despite all those sacks. And that is the second worst mark of a Jim Schwartz Browns defense since he was back there as the coordinator. So they ended up having a very effective day, despite the 5 sacks for Myles Garrett. Like, what a crazy Tungsten O'Doyle type of game for Myles Garrett.
You're right. I thought that drive that ended in a rollout pass to Hunter Henry for a touchdown was perhaps Josh McDaniels' best game script of the entire season, because he identified why the run game was struggling coming out of halftime, and it was all perimeter runs. It was tosses, it was stretches, it was Travion Henderson getting to the edge, breaking tackles, and ripping off big gains, but it was well balanced, where it wasn't every single play, but it was well timed. He mixed in, the running back pass back to the quarterback, like you said, and then he finishes it off perfectly with the play action rollout to Hunter Henry, who was wide open. Like, it was one of those drives where you see it live and you're thinking this offensive coordinator has the defensive coordinator completely outfoxed. Like, he has just a step ahead of him, and this defense has no idea what to do. And that is an illustration of the potential of McDaniels and May. And while we give May all the credit in the world, and he deserves it for his physical ability and him completing deep passes and handling all the stresses of the job, he is perfectly paired with an offensive coordinator who knows exactly what to do with him. And now that they have enough talent to succeed, Kayshon Boutte developing, Stephon Diggs becoming a bigger part of this passing game over the last few weeks, going between Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson to balance out this rushing attack, it's just a beautiful thing to see. It's all coming together. Even on a day in which Will Campbell's getting cooked by Myles Garrett, it doesn't end up mattering because that's how in sync they are. Yeah,
this was a game that confirmed my priors, which is that the offensive line for the Patriots really isn't very good. They got totally dominated. The pressure rate was so high in the first, and yet May is overcoming it because they do have real strengths. And the defense, the run defense for the Patriots is one of the best in the league, and they sold out to stop Quinshon Judkins today, and they did it. And then Judkins, unfortunately, gets hurt in this game. I thought it was such a telling sequence. They're showing the montage of the Myles Garrett sacks, 5 of them in one game. Yes. And then the CBS camera pans to Myles Garrett just because he was out at that point. And he is slamming, must have broke the helmet. I mean, he's a man who knows how to slam a helmet. Slammed the helmet on the ground. I'm not sure why he was so mad. If I had to guess, it was maybe that they took him out of the game, or maybe just that they're struggling, and I don't really know, but he is frustrated. You know who wasn't frustrated after the game? Mike Vrabel, who is not above taking a shot, asked about his defense today.
Taking advantage of the turnovers is huge. Certainly one on third down there with Spillane. And then the long one there that Hawk had. So we got to take care of the ball better and continue to find opportunities. They hadn't turned it over. And then when their gimmick plays ran out, I thought we played pretty good defense.
Yeah, and gimmick plays are handing it off to Malachi Corley, who is a receiver, in case you don't know, for a long gain on the first drive. That's the type of stuff the Browns have to resort to doing because they know they're limited offensively, especially when the run game's not working. Dylan Gabriel throws a very ugly first interception that sets up a touchdown, puts the Patriots deep in Browns territory. And then he throws another one on the next drive. That's a fantastic play made by the defensive back. So the Browns are limited. The Patriots took care of business, and the dark season continues for Cleveland.
Yeah. Gabriel is a man who Kevin Stefanski believes in and made it pretty clear to me that they're going to stand by him, say that you got to ride the ups and the downs, but he has pretty clear limitations. And it's not going to be your day when Robert Spillane steps into the passing lane for an interception, but even more, you referred to the other interception. It was like a one-handed catch by Jalen Hawkins 50 yards down the field, which Gabriel probably shouldn't have thrown, but I think he just wanted to show everyone he could throw the ball 50 yards down the field, and he did. Christian Gonzalez also had a really nice game for the Patriots. Enough about this game. I almost feel like this entire show has just been a little preamble, a little foreplay to the good stuff. That's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. To Sunday night.
By Christian Watson. Here's the snap to Love. Rush on, throws the middle. Dallas man cutting left to the 5 to the end zone. It is Tucker Kraft having a night. Wow.
Touchdown Green Bay. They beat Chuck Clark on a crosser. 24-yard touchdown reception.
Oh, on a night where two great quarterbacks go up against each other, you want to see greatness. And we got greatness in Pittsburgh. 35-25, the Packers win it. That was Wayne Larrivee on WRNW. And yes, Tucker Kraft was a huge part of the great night of Jordan Love with 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, seemingly all of it after the catch. But ultimately shook this game, this matchup. It was about the quarterbacks, and I just wanted to leave it with something memorable. And I'll admit I'm a little bit of a hater. I wanted it to be a memorable passing of the torch, and that's exactly what we got. A second half for the ages by Jordan Love. He ends up with 360 yards and 3 touchdowns, 20 straight completions at one point. And it's not like he's just dinking and dunking. He had some great plays down the field. The Packers dominate after halftime. They knew what the Steelers defense was going to do, and they crushed them. A really impressive night for Jordan Love.
And a great case for halftime adjustments and just figuring out what you want to do against the defense in the second half, because this Packers offense was struggling mightily. They just couldn't finish drives. Their kicker couldn't make field goals. And then they come out and look like a completely different offense in the third quarter and dominate, steamroll that Steelers defense, the much maligned Steelers defense, back in the crosshairs this week after the second half they had, because they had no answer for Jordan Love, who was fantastic. Welcome back, Christian Watson. He makes a big catch deep in the red zone to set up a score. And of course, like you said, Tucker Kraft. This is Packers offense near its peak potential. And it all starts with your quarterback, who did a great job of out-dueling Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, ultimately, look, they did punt 3 times in the first half. They were all 3 and out. Some of their third down play calling I found frustrating. Like first drive of the game, they throw it on 3rd and 1. They are struggling in short yardage. But ultimately, they have a touchdown, and it's a couple of missed field goals before halftime. After that, they go 3 straight touchdowns and 2 field goals. You mentioned the Watson catch, and that's what I'll remember about this second half. It was one of 2 things. Number 1, it was what you said, the adjustments. Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love having answers against the blitz. After Kraft kills you all night, you got Chuck Clark on him one-on-one. Like, you're not a good man coverage team. Stop putting your guys in man coverage. They benched Darius Slay at one point and when they were in the nickel and brought in Brandon Echols because he can't cover one-on-one. But when it wasn't the answer of the scheme, it was just Jordan Love doing things that only he can do. Maybe a young Aaron Rodgers could do, but not anymore. Let's listen.
Here's the snap. Rush on. Blitz on. Love rolls out right. Lofts it over the middle. Christian Watson's got it. Inside the 10. He's tackled at the 7-yard line of Pittsburgh by Brandon Echols. Christian Watson, welcome back.
Wow, that's one of those throws on the TV copy where we're like, oh, that's a terrible decision while it's in the air. And then it actually gets there and you see a little what Jordan Love was seeing. And what a night. Watson, to me, can help change this offense. Off the torn ACL, 4 catches for 85 yards. He looked as healthy as a guy in his first game coming off a torn ACL has ever looked, in my opinion.
I feel like it's been so long since we've seen a fully healthy Christian Watson because he's just dealt with so many injuries over the last few years. So it was really exciting to see that happen, but it was especially exciting to see them connect in such a big spot. That's 3rd down. Jordan Love's under pressure. They're down 19-14. Their offense is still trying to figure things out. That is a game-changing completion that inspires the team, injects confidence into them that, yes, we can go into Pittsburgh and beat this team. We have figured it out in the second half. It's a huge play and a huge win for them. I think a bit of a statement for the Packers.
Yeah, 5-1-1 for all the hemming and hawing about, they haven't done this right. Defense hasn't been as dominant as we would expect. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. Like, full stop. Yeah. They were entering this week. They just won this game, and they have a lot of tough games coming up in the second half of the schedule. Both them and the Lions are right there in the center of the NFL when they play each other, and then some other difficult matchups like the Packers have the Ravens coming up later in the season. There's an at Denver in there. It's going to be fun, but they are such a tough out. While we're just giving Love his flowers, let's go back to earlier in the second half. They trail 16-7 at halftime. Ultimately, the Steelers did a good job running the ball in the first half. I thought it was a key sequence coming out of halftime. The Steelers go 3 and out. They did not run the ball one time in that sequence. Packers get the ball back, and it took a little Love magic to really turn this game around.
Single receiver to the left. Snap to Love. Looking and waiting. Lofts it over the right side. Caught by Tucker Kraft to the 30. He's to the 40. He's to the 50, to the 45, 30. And down he goes inside the 30 at the 25-yard line. Tucker Kraft on National Tight Ends Day. Another big play. Thornhill and Elliott made the hits. 59-yard pass play to flip the field.
Oh, wow. Did we make it the whole show without mentioning that holiday? If so, that was a good job by us.
The fake holiday that was created by George Kittle on a whim a couple of years ago and now dominates 1 week every year. Yeah. Greg, have you ever played the game Jackpot as a kid?
No.
500 where you just throw the ball up. I'm talking to my nephew last week and he's like, yeah, one of the games we play with my friends is Jackpot. And I'm like, oh, I remember Jackpot. It's where you just throw the ball up in the air. You call it like a value, and it's just a jump ball game. Tucker Kraft must have been the best Jackpot player in the history of Jackpot because he made a great play there. And it was also a pivotal play in the sequence of this game because Deshaun Elliott gets hurt, unfortunately, on that play. And then they have to rely on other players. You mentioned like a Chuck Clark, and it creates a bit of a weakness that the Packers are then able to expose.
Yeah, this method of how the Steelers play defense, and we just talked about it quite a bit on the Thursday night football loss to the Bengals. It's just too predictable when they're in single high. It took a little bit for the Packers to get adjusted, and I thought the secondary played better for the Steelers tonight, but ultimately the mismatches were there, and they've played 7 games this year, the Pittsburgh Steelers. In 4 of those games, they've given up more than 30 points. I mean, it's just they're just not the defense they expected to be. Aaron Rodgers was game. He looked old at points, and he took a couple sacks that, maybe when he was younger, he would escape out of, but ultimately he was solid tonight. He moved the ball. I know they got a late touchdown when it almost felt like garbage time, but they put 25 points up. I'm not going to kill him or Jaylen Warren. I didn't love the play calling in the second half. It's more that they just went up against an offense that is more ready to win shootouts, and the Steelers are not. For instance, the Jordan Love completion there on 3rd and long, he's hitting 63% conversion rate on 3rd and 7 plus, according to Sam Schwartzstein of Amazon Prime. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's more than double the league average. They're just that kind of shows who they are as a team, that you can get them in 3rd and long situations and they can still win. So just an impressive performance. And the Steelers can't win this way, and their schedule now 4-3, 2 straight losses is about to get a lot tougher.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Steelers are 1 for 10 on 3rd down. They're constantly in 3rd and long, especially in the second half. I think we should mention, though, and we've talked about this many times, so maybe it feels a little ad nauseum. Micah Parsons, his role in this game was insane. Like in the second half, whether it was sacking Aaron Rodgers while getting held by 2 guys simultaneously, or lining up repeatedly in the A gap and just getting into the mind of Aaron Rodgers, a guy who was notoriously unflappable, and he forcing Aaron Rodgers to get the ball out quickly or bail out of a pocket that's not collapsing on him. We cannot overlook or even overstate the impact of Micah Parsons. It might not be a 4-quarter impact, but in the big spots over the last couple of weeks, he's really made a difference for them.
Yeah, and they have other players making great individual plays. Carrington Valentine has stepped up as a good outside corner. I think he's taking that job from Nate Hobbs, who was the big free agency pickup. He made a number of good plays in this game. Edgerrin Cooper was flying around, was maybe their best defensive player, and he was, for all 4 quarters, being a problem. And I thought they rushed well as a team. Rashawn Gary got 2 sacks, but you kind of mentioned the impact that Parsons had on those plays. So they look like a complete team right now. The Steelers in trouble, and it just is one of those games. We kind of circled it at the very beginning of the season, Shook, like Aaron Rodgers against the Packers, the hugs afterwards. It's just like one of those games we're going to remember. And I, for one, feel like it delivered, but maybe only because I got the result that I wanted. Sorry, Steelers fans.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. It does. If this is Rodgers last year, which we all expect it is, it felt appropriate that he would, host the Packers in Pittsburgh and fall short. Not because I'm being a hater either. It just felt appropriate.
Well, and he's playing well. He's really doing his job. He's more of a game manager at this point of his career, but he's been a pretty good one. The problem is Mike Tomlin and the defensive talent, where all the money is. He said that he thought this could be a historic defense. It is not so far, and that division looks open for the taking for the Baltimore Ravens, who are I know the schedule's easy, and you got to just win one at a time. But man, they're going to be heavily favored, and a lot of games in a row. The Steelers will not. Looking forward to tracking it. And yes, we're just wanting to keep this season and as many teams as possible going. Even the Bengals were watching somewhere and thinking, okay, maybe it wasn't as embarrassing as we thought that we lost to the Jets. Oh yes, it was. Bengals fans, hold your head.
We had 16 teams in the Super Bowl running, right? What, a week ago?
Yes.
Still
there?
All options are open, baby.
Yeah, there was only one game all week that was a one-score game, which is absolutely preposterous. That's not the NFL that I want, the NFL that I love. Maybe we'll improve it, but I'm not so sure on Monday night. We're live every Monday night, and we're going to make it fun. We're going to add a spicy segment along with Chiefs and Commanders. That's a little bit of a tease. It's going to be me and the People's Champion, Nick Shook, talking Chiefs, Commanders, right after it's done. Join us on YouTube. We will see you then.